We are here Monday, SpeakuP Monday, Tropical Nomad. Today we have the Health Hub Bali curated panel. Round of applause. There you go. There you go. The studio audience are definitely alive and awake tonight. This is good. So you can come and be part of the studio audience every week. It's complimentary. It's just a really good time to connect with great people who are like-minded in many ways than you could possibly imagine. Now, my name is Robert Ian Bonnick, the tourism architect, and today we're on Health Hub Bali, and we're up to number 3 in our series of the future of health. And Tracy, sitting next to me with Health Hub Bali, will give us a great summation of where we've come in the last 3 months, but not yet. We'll leave it to last. I know you can't wait. So what we're going to do first is that we're going to have each panelist introduce themselves so you get an idea of who they are and probably why they're here. And some of them you'll probably know. If you don't, they are stunning, beautiful, heart-centered people which are doing some incredible things here in Bali. So we'll start off. It should be ladies first, but Terje is the only other guy here tonight with me. So I think I'll go to him first, and then we'll come around this way and end with Tracy. So Terje, just a little introduction to yourself.
How long do I got?
Oh, you can have about 2 minutes, 3 minutes.
Yeah, Terje or Terje it ends up with here. Some of you know me, some may not. I used to be in the fitness industry, but not anymore, and that's why I'm not here, as you can tell. Today in Bali, we mainly do tourism-related aspect, real estate-related aspects. So we have a legal advisory, a company that does everything from setting up PMAs, helping people with visas, accounting, taxes, investment reports, all of the scary aspects that most of us forgot over the last 15 years. We also have a branch in Jakarta where we deal with larger entities coming in particular from Scandinavia, but also other places. And that, I think, is why I'm here. We work a lot with Tracy to try to support her path forward, and we see this as a tremendously important aspect for where we can see now tourism and trends heading with not just Bali, but all of Indonesia. Thank you.
Wonderful. So if you pass that microphone to Janet. Before you go, Janet, if you're watching from, say, Instagram Live, Itchy will put up a little link that will connect you with YouTube Live and Facebook Live, which are the superior formats to watch this on. You get to hear and see every word so crystal clear, and it lands I think in a much more powerful way. So you can do that if you're on Instagram Live right now. Now, over to you, Janet.
Oh, what am I going to say? So I suppose when we think of health, quite often we think of physical health and physical health problems and physical pain. I actually work in a different realm, which is going back from that. What is the potential cause of the physical problem? And as you probably know, sometimes it's more to do with our emotional, mental state, even, dare I say, spiritual state, where we feel a disconnection with our true self. And so it can show up as a physical symptom. So I love working with people in extreme emotional pain. It's my playground, and I love helping them come to a place of oneness and wholeness so that they can be fully functioning, happy, fulfilled human beings. And I do that through my program, The Fifth Door, and I'm based here in Bali, but I also work with people overseas online. And I love my job, so that's what I'd like to share.
Love that. Thank you, Janet. So over to you, Stephanie.
My name is Stephanie Hu. I'm the founder of A Gracious Life, offering holistic wellness coaching. I run wellness retreats and create bespoke well-being programs for international hotel resorts. And as a practitioner, I work and offer really personalized services with every individual, guiding them to whole health and happiness through various natural modalities, utilizing essential oils, Qigong exercises, body work, lifestyle enhancements, nutritional guidance, and just bringing back to equilibrium and balance again. So, yeah.
Wonderful. And look, just maybe ask the guys to maybe turn the music down just in the cafe. Tracy, so over to you, and let's hear that nice loud voice of yours. Okay. Yeah.
What did you want me to say?
So maybe introduce, for people who may don't know who you are, just a few words about you. What makes you you?
Okay. My name is Tracy. I'm here in Bali. I've been working on one project here, Health Hub Bali. It was something actually I started in Australia originally to connect people to better health. The entry point's always been functional medicine, and it's a whole journey program for people to connect to better health. The beauty of it here tonight, we're talking about why Bali, because it's not normally connected with medical health, and we're talking about health tourism. Health Hub is a health tourism platform, and what it is here has been set up to connect what is here and showcase things that people can find their way to their own health. Why we've got Terry here is because we're talking about what's legal, legitimate and credible. This is for the so we can say for the patients who they can trust the medical care that they do get, also for the practitioners and the ones sharing their protocols that they can align with the law that's set up here in Indonesia. The other part that we originally talked about, you want to talk about the 3 panels for me to cover that?
Yes.
Okay.
So what we're going to do firstly, can everybody hear Tracy when she speaks?
No.
Yeah, so with Tracy we have to bring her up because I know she's got the powerful soul in there dying to come out.
Okay.
Let it out, Tracy.
I have to get cranky.
Did you hear that? She said she has to get cranky before the loud one comes out. So I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a blessing. The dragon lady has to come out. All right. We're going to turn the mic up a little bit and hopefully we're going to dragon lady tonight, my darling.
Okay. All right. So next.
So what we're going to talk about now, so this is our 3rd panel. So perhaps if you can kind of walk us through like the journey from panel 1, part 1, into part 3.
Okay. So originally we started with the first panel. Janet joined us on that with a couple others. It was about the crisis in health, why there is an issue today different than that's ever been in history. And we're not talking about COVID, even the last 50 years. What has impacted people's health? Why is life different now despite all the scientific advances? And why Bali? Why come and have this conversation here? One of the things that we could see was the deviation from the old ways and the, what could you say, the chemical issues, the pollution, the effect, the stresses on our bodies have put us into a state where, I don't know if you want to call them diseases. If we talk cancer and autoimmune are part of what I work with. 85% they would say is based on from the traumas that people are going through. But what we're saying now, if we can clean up our body, keep it clean, we can put our bodies in a state where they can cope with these traumas, come here and then learn other ways of being to cope with the stresses, things that they haven't learnt as a child. There may be some tools there. It can be the breath work, the Qigong we're talking about, and we're talking about these soft modalities. The second panel that we had last week was talking about baselines, and we were mainly going from the allopathic side, why we start with that, and we're talking about testing and looking at the body's indicators and the fact that we have got a system in us that self-regulates, and we've got an innate, what we call a self-healing mechanism. So by rights, as a child, we cut ourselves, we heal. Why does it suddenly stop? Why do we get sick? Why do we developing, whether it be the diabetes, like I said, the cancers, the lung issues, the heart issues, and they're just rising and rising despite all the scientific advances. We'll go further in today. I know Terry will address some of the health tourism from Jakarta side. They're looking at putting hospitals in here. And where Health Hub comes into what we'd like to explore is the fact that we can work similar to what we've done in other countries, have adjunct to these hospitals, wellness centres where we can do all the testing, get all the baselines right, know where people are sitting, and then create journeys for them to bring life back into their body, to clean their cells. And in a similar model to what's been done in Germany, in the clinics, here in Indonesia, we can do in hospitals. And that's based on the law, the constitution that's always been set up, and it's probably the most integrative and what I would call whole health system in the world. So we'd like to explore that. and I can go further into that talk. But
Yeah. Well, look, just picking up on a few things that you said, so integrative, whole health, and what we were saying before as well about science-backed, because lots of people come here to Bali, Eat, Pray, Love style, great movie, and it's a yoga form. So what Health Hub Bali is about saying, well, Bali is this amazing energy to it that calms our nervous system, that allows this homeostatic mechanism that we all have, like a thermostat in our body, that can regulate our different systems at the same time. So with Health Hub Bali, it curates health journeys specific to that patient. And, through this, it's this allied network of professionals. But what's backing it all is science. So it's hard science backing it all, as opposed to a theory or a belief, which I think is, for people in the West, it's very powerful, right? Because part of all of us probably wants to know the concrete, solid, empirical data that this works, right? And then perhaps the East is great for the treatment. So I guess bringing us, you mentioned health tourism before, and Terje is here, and he's been here for many years more than myself, and I think anyone else here as well. And as has been working a lot with government as well, with different departments. So he has a really, let's say, on point viewpoint about where health tourism is at, I believe, in Bali and Indonesia. So it would be great, Terje, just to give people here just a little insight into how this health tourism aspect of Bali/Indonesia, where it sits, and why something like Health Hub Bali can slide right into that gap.
I think maybe I'll start with a few other things, because often we, as expats, and a lot of expats have views on Indonesia, that Indonesia is still kind of a developing country, the government don't really know what they're doing, and so on and so on. And if you pay attention to some of our write-ups, but also general news, 3 weeks ago, the World Bank had a report coming out where they talk about a possible slight recession happening in the world all over except Indonesia. And as part of that report, they concluded that the strongest economy in the world today is Indonesia. And that doesn't happen by coincidence. There's a massive program. It's a very complex country. It's a difficult country to manage, but it's doing tremendously well. If we look at tourism, and most of us know the history, I think first time that someone wrote about mass tourism and problems of mass tourism in Bali was 1934. And we're still writing about it. Then obviously COVID came along and things changed. I remember when I was in the fitness industry a long time ago, I went to see all the GMs in Nusa Dua in those days and talked to them about health spas like you see in the Europe and the US, and said, oh, you should do that in Bali because you have less labor, good feeling, good energy, and so on. They all laughed and say, oh, no, they just want to hang around the pool, have a pina colada, read a book, and then suck in the sun and go back home. Then you had Mandara Spa. I don't know if you remember that, but Mandara Spa was a Balinese sort of massage, healing, aromatic oils and so on, that also went and talked to the hotels. And the difference from me and them was that they had money. So they opened all of these clinics or spa treatments in a lot of hotels and exited that company selling it for $100 million. So they started a wave and a trend that showed that Bali really had that sort of attraction to it. Since then, we can see now COVID. A lot of people thought that because of COVID, tourism was going to be dead and people would never come back and never travel again. I think today we see a V-shaped recovery of Bali, domestic market, but also internationally. And the biggest problem now is actually logistics. But I think we'll see some changes in more conscious travel and more seek of healing and health aspects coming. So the two trends that we see is the not digital nomads, which now Indonesia is going to pass a special visa for, which not all of us like, because that means they're going to be tax-free doing businesses here, and some of us who's been here for many years think they should actually contribute, but that's a different story. And we see the sort of remote workers. But another big thing, if you go out here on the street, you hear everyone. They talk about healing, they talk about medical, holistic, and so on. And sometimes back the central government decided that Bali was going to be a health tourism destination. And that's a program that they're driving. And I think one of the first things that we saw, they focused a lot towards allopathic. So you might have heard that Mayo Clinic is going to build a big clinic out in Sanur. And for us, that I think is good. It creates another layer of credibility, normal illness, people have heart attacks, all kinds of traffic accidents and so on. But they're also very well aware of what goes on in terms of holistic health. I think there's some confusion in the government maybe to exactly what that means and how they can lift that up. But they're realizing more and more what Tracy and Jonas and some of the team members in Health Hub Bali put together, where you can see that is a massively increasing trend. Holistic health is coming more and more, and definitely that's the trading advantage or competitive advantage for Bali. It's going to take them a long time to, I think, compete with Thailand, Singapore, and some of these other places, and going the holistic way combined with allopathic, they are becoming more and more aware of. So I think that's where it's heading, and we will see more and more support from the central government. They have challenges. I think when Indonesia now wants to leap forward and become a country with a lot more ease of doing business, again, the World Bank recommended to Indonesia that they need to work on their bureaucracy, which OSS and now Omnibus Law, which you might have heard of, has been passed and coming into play. Second thing was then education. So they're slowly opening up for universities to come into Indonesia. Third thing was infrastructure. I've never seen a massive, all of these roads, bridges, harbors, whatever is being built all over the place. And the fourth was in health, where they also say that Indonesia itself, with existing doctors and hospitals, cannot manage to take care of even their own people. So they need to allow, and step by step, I think they will allow foreign doctors to also come in and practice. That is not happening yet, but it will at some stage. Two reasons, then doctors the Indonesian doctors, and you get a much better cover in general towards the Indonesian people. But also when you look at health tourism in like Singapore and Malaysia, maybe like Singapore, 50% of the health tourism is Indonesian. For Malaysia, it's 70%. So it's a massive capital flight also for Indonesia, which makes it more urgent for the government to obviously cover up these loopholes and support these movements.
That's a brilliant summation, So we've caught up a couple of times now, and whenever I'm in your presence, there's always something else that I learn, or something else that I imbibe. So I really appreciate you being here. And in a minute, I'm going to slide just to Stephanie for a moment, because when we were having a chat prior, you were saying about the 3 S's, which I think would be great for people to hear from you.
So the Indonesia Minister of Tourism is trying to divert the original focus of what Bali is with the 3 S's: sun, sea, and sur, right? And so now he's saying, well, we should renew and divert that to the new 3 S's, which is serenity, spirituality, and sustainability. So I think that really opens up the doorway for, all these programs and, to really, integrate into what Bali really has to offer. Yeah.
And look, for those of you who maybe have just tuning in for the first time, where were you? Make sure, by the way, all of the episodes are recorded. So just go to SpeakuP Monday on YouTube, SpeakuP Monday, and you'll find all the back editions in playlist SpeakuP Monday, right? You'll find the last 2 episodes here. But a very brief summation is, look, if you're, coming in, as Tracy mentioned earlier on, you're coming into this network of allied health professionals called Health Hub Bali. So make sure you look at the Instagram Health Hub Bali. You'll find the details here, based here in Pereira Nan. And by the way, every Tuesday morning still, we're doing the health talks. So what we discuss here, they go a lot deeper on Tuesday. So for some of you, this might be elementary, and I'm happy for you. For others, it might be, hey, I didn't realize that. I'm happy for you also, but you can deepen that knowledge and embody that knowledge by going and checking them out on Tuesday, the Tuesday morning talks. So practically, how Health Hub Bali works is, you will find your way into the system, and you'll first be tested. So last week we went into why baselines are incredibly important. And those baselines, I won't go into the devices that are used, just check that episode and you'll see, all available through Health Hub Bali, by the way. So once we have this helicopter view of where you are at, where your body's at. And remember, this is about functional medicine. So functional medicine. In other words, it's going to the root cause of what is causing whatever you're feeling and suffering from. A lot of people here may take various scans and tests, but these tests aren't necessarily accurate. So what happens then is that you think you're doing just fine, but you feel like something's out, but you're not quite sure what it is. And then sure enough, you end up with an emergency situation. So then what will happen is that once you find your way into this Health Hub Bali network that Tracy will go into more detail in a minute, then a personal curated journey for you is then created. And that's where the power of this network of allied professionals comes in, and able to miss the holes and the gaps which most others seem to be doing on an increasing basis, right? So that's a bit of a sum up, and I'm sure these guys are going to add to that with their knowledge about that. But we're speaking tonight about, number one, why is Bali, a health tourism destination? I think Terje and Stephanie have done an amazing job with that give you that background of knowledge. So, but the other thing that we wanted to speak about tonight, Tracy, there were a few more, is, are there any other factors which you feel are ensuring that Bali is a place like nowhere else on earth, pretty much, where you can get this sort of service, where the elements, where the energy is sustaining your life to the point where you can end up taking years off your life, looking after your health and becoming a health seeker?
Yes.
I thought so.
Yeah. So what you're talking now is about vitality. So the entry point, I want to go back to that. The entry point, what most people, it's usually a reaction to something, they're not okay. And by that time, it's already been there for quite a few years. And when they get a test, they'll go, and it's what we call static. It'll be ultrasound, CT, MRI, whatever, or blood testing. It's already there. We're talking about dynamic testing, something that can show how our body's reacting. That's why it's functional. We can find what's blocked and then put the programs, which are like a life medicine, and reactivate, get the cells work in the blood and detox in a certain way that's tailored for the person. But when you talk about Bali, why Bali? A few years ago, or before COVID, we had our first event here, Explore Health, and the journey behind the science of transformation, and meet the doctors. We had a whole series of probably 16 doctors here for one of our first events. And that's what Janet introduced. And probably Janet, she had a really nice analogy of what was happening to the tourists, and even back then it applies more now. Do you want to share that?
Yeah, so Janet, great time to bring you in. Great segue into Janet.
Yeah. Well, I think what we were seeing a couple of years ago, and is still an ongoing problem, is in allopathic or say Western medicine, we traditionally had someone who knew us very well, the local GP. He was almost like a pastor, or someone that we could talk to, not just about our physical health, but our emotional health as well. And that gave us a great deal of comfort. That person's no longer there. And so when we go, well, who actually understands my health? We're left clutching with straws. So I think what we saw fairly recently were, typically, I think the example I used at that presentation was, a woman in her 50s comes to Bali, doesn't feel right, maybe she's newly divorced, broken up with her husband or her kids or whatever, and is seeking answers but has no idea what to do or where to go once she gets off the plane. There's no direction, there's no curation of her journey. And so she might do, a little bit of detoxing and have a massage and, maybe a bit of yoga, but none of it's really getting to the problem. And typically she might be there for a couple of weeks at the most. If it's someone from New York, an executive wanting to get a detox, they might be here for 4 days. And so if anything, it's a tantalizing experience of what better health might feel like, but it's not actually solving a real problem for anyone. So the opportunity now, now that we've understood not only how important physical health is, but increasingly mental health is now on the shopping list of what needs to be attended to, Bali is coming across as a place where the environment aligns with the transformation that we want to see. So in other words, we're talking about a place, if the key health problem is stress, Bali would have to be, unless you get caught in traffic, and that's being fixed, isn't it, Terry? We're getting the nice bypass or whatever it's going to be called. Bali would have to be one of the least stressful places on the planet compared to the current options, Singapore or Thailand, Bangkok, for instance. So Bali is beautifully placed now to attend to people who want a total health reset, who don't come here for a handful of days, but come here for 6 weeks and see Tracy, have a full analysis of what's really wrong with them, not just at the physical level, and then the practitioners who can help them with that. So that's what I see. It's not just an opportunity, but it's vitally important for Bali's future development to have tourism and tourists who are aligned with the values of Bali, who are seeking spirituality, not sun, booze and sex, but people who actually want to get better, look after themselves, and also look after Bali at the same time.
Yeah. So adding to that, there was a survey done, and interesting statistic that Bali was much preferred destination for wellness retreats, 76%. Globally. So it's a preferred destination to come. And along with, the top 3 priorities that they want to look after is physical health, mental health, and making time for self-care. So all these things are, I feel it's so important. And I think it was something like over 80% of people noticed extra stress over the last couple of years, of course, from what happened. And they are looking into ways of how to de-stress and looking for programs and assistance with that. And I think Bali's one of the perfect places to offer with its idyllic location, with
while you're on that, actually,
yes.
This retreat destination, right? So, and this is part of what you advise on and so on. So what have you noticed are the biggest challenges with the retreat space, and how is what's happening here able to solve or bridge that gap?
I think at the moment is probably people aren't noticing or seeing what's available. Yeah, what's really, really available to really provide that support. And I think with Health Hub Bali, the aim is to really partner up with resorts, for example, and hotels, and offering these programs, for them and say, well, you're coming here for a holiday, but, let's also look into, your health and well-being. And at the same time, dive in deeper in that. So again, it's not the original 3 S's, but going deeper. And, with my recent experience being a well-being advisor for Raffles Bali, creating, retreat programs for them. And it does address, points in that as well. So, yeah, so it's definitely a starting point. Yeah.
And Tracy, I know you wanted to add something to that.
All right. What did you say? With the retreats, what's happened is probably over the last 30 years, it's been scattered. People come in there, they do retreats from probably other countries. We want to make it, one part is legal, legitimate and credible. We keep going back to that. And then also having a standard, using the HHB as a platform to connect the people to better health, have the menu there, and then basically health guides or coaches, so people can get their assessments, they can have the education and start owning their own health. They can create their own retreats, but they'll know totally what's available here and connect it all on a journey. And it doesn't matter what age bracket, whether it's children, postpartum, or like the dementia side, there are programs that they're using through the world to reverse these conditions and bring the life back into the body. So we're talking not this time, and I'm thinking in the future we do a blue zone section, we're talking vitality. And when Rob asked a couple months ago the future of health and his subject, and I spun, because Health Hub Bali is not just about Bali, we're a telemedicine system as well. We get the testing here, but we check in with doctors in through the world who are specialists in those areas, and their message is preventative care. You find out beforehand, and we change the way we live, eat and sleep, think, all that. And that's why to put new habits into place, that's why Bali's the place. It's a safe place. It creates a space there, and you start connecting not just with yourself, with the land, with the people. It's a different energy for healing.
So just want to see a little straw poll. Straw poll always helps, do you think? I think so. Raise of hands. So who here has come to Bali to deal with anything that's health related? Just raise your hands. Okay. Great. So who here came to Bali for the first 3 S's? There's one person telling the truth. 2 people, 3 people telling the...
First 3 S's or the second one?
The first 3 S's. All right. So now the second 3 S's, and please remind people what the second 3 S's are.
So the first was sun, sea, and sand, and the second is serenity, spirituality, and sustainability.
Now, who would come, if you didn't know Bali before, who would come for the second 3 S's? Just want to... I believe so as well. Yeah, okay. It's nice to get a sense of where people are, right? Okay. So then this episode we're talking about, health tourism. I think we've covered that. And, we had a few other ones here. So one was about the programs. So maybe you can give people an example of the kind of programs that you think would be of value for this audience based upon what they've just said. That it'd be good to talk about.
Okay. I think we're talking personalised health, and when we talk about programs, depending on the person, they want to be told nearly what to do. And it's not exploring. So it's through education, what Health Hub is doing is giving people information, because they don't know what they don't know. So if we're having these weekly fundamentals that we're sharing, we're looking at doing a series. This will run all year. That's one series. That's fundamentals. But we'll do them on about 6 different subjects and have experts talk weekly, all different ones. So you'll end up with about 70 experts here in Bali speaking weekly at different spaces. And people can click in online and go there. And based on that, the programs are put together. Okay. And having health coaches that understand whole health can guide them, because there's questions you don't know what to do, who you're going to go to, because then we're talking about something that's cost effective, systemic and sustainable. So first of all, we're human. Before we start doing all the yoga and all this, we want to get grounded, we want our body clean. So without even thinking about any program, at the first part of the funnel, we're looking at doing a 1-week detox, which could seem dangerous to some people before we actually find out too much what's happening in their body. But just to clean the plaque through the gut, introducing people to colonics, but not 1 but 3 in a row we're talking. And these are the clinics in Thailand, Turkey, Germany. This is the programs they're doing because of the toxins that are stuck in our body before we put good things in, before they can their brain can even think clearly. And then as people understand more about the gut-brain connection, they start feeling differently. So then we're not just addressing symptoms. We're using far infrared. We're using the energy medicines. We're cleaning the blood with ozone instead of taking months with herbs and that. So instantly they've got results. We can neutralise the pathogens that may be sitting there that no blood test will show up. Okay, so, and talk about cost effective, like some of these treatments, you know, they can't believe it. Like I had one doctor here last month, and a treatment that's like, I would say about 3 million here, he reckoned was $3,000 in his country. In Hong Kong, I know they're $1,000 the same treatment. So we can put programs that can neutralise disease, and we can start activating the person. So it's not just about me. I'm saying all health coaches unite. Let's get together. Whatever gap there is in your training, let's fill those gaps so that you can actually serve the people and come from a space where we empower health.
So keeping that microphone in exactly the same position, because you could hear her, right? Which is, we've got a few hands up. So we're using this term whole health a lot. I'm not sure, and again, last raise of hands, I promise. When we speak about whole health, who, hand on heart, knows what we're talking about? Raise your hand. Okay, so who, hand on heart, doesn't know what the hell we're talking about when we say whole health? Be honest. Be honest. Okay, good. That's half the room, including Terje. What? Okay. So, whole health, Tracy, what is it?
All right. If I say holistic, what does that mean? If I say CAM? Yeah. In the world of science, what 99% of people trust is the allopathic. When something goes wrong, they're running to the hospital, the doctors, even the gurus. I'm telling you, they're sitting there with antibiotics going in there. When we talk about whole health, we're looking at every part. We're doing proper testing and educating. And it's something that's only happened in this last 50 years since the medical model has been set up. The medical model, what I'm saying, it's what we call a Cartesian model. So you have doctors who understand the liver, they understand the kidney, the lymphatics. I'm sitting on calls at like 2 a.m. with people who've got cancer, and with a doctor in London, and they've got lung cancer or something. But he can't talk about the lymphatic implications because he's not allowed to talk about that. He can only talk about the lungs. So there's a bit of an issue there. The people are frustrated. They've just spent, $700 for that short consult, and now they've got to spend more, time. They can't get to the bottom of it. Whole health is probably similar to what Janet was just talking about. We're integrating the whole lot. It's about you understanding your own health. We go to the experts, we get the information back, find out what's happening, what's causing it. And a lot of the time when we go back to the endocrine, what we call the nervous system, and our state of being, you'll find that's what's charging the disease that's happening today. But the first part where we started, we just want the body detoxed properly, but in a way that it's right out of the body. There's an art to detoxing, because otherwise we've got other issues here of, that's another story about detoxing, which I won't go into now. But if you're not doing that properly, you've got cells mutating into other things. So this is part of the education. So a lot of the conversation is not also just for the public, that you own your own health, but it's also for medics. So we're seeing Bali as a place to connect, to have conversations that we cannot have in London, New York, Sydney. That's what I keep saying. We can have it here in Bali. It's a safe place for conversations that matter. And we just talk science and we talk the facts. There's no dogma. We just stick to a very high level, which we can all agree on. It's functional. And it's not. When they say pseudoscience, there's a lot of quantum. There's other levels to Health Hub, but we start with what everyone understands. The quantum side, yes, there's science behind that, but at this moment it's only 50% accurate as far as the normal medical world's concerned. So we'll stick to what they're safe with, and we'll help guide people that they can unblock whatever's blocking their body. And it doesn't matter if it's genetic, we can explain the science behind that too.
Now, Terje, you wanted to add to that? I can see the microphone in your hand there.
Yeah, I think maybe not so much on the health aspect, but I've known Tracy for probably too long already, but 5-6 years. And one of the things that attracts me to what she does is that she says people should have a choice. People should have a choice. Today we think we have a choice, but we don't. Some of us realize and wake up to that. And another thing she talks about is why we're here today too, is why Bali. And I think I'd go back a little bit to what a few of the panelists mentioned too on these studies that we see today on tourism, where it's going, COVID, you mentioned too that Bali is a preferred place to come, to live, to do health treatments and so on. I've seen maybe a dozen different studies done during COVID about this all over the world. Bali is always top 3 destinations on residential place they want to live or do health aspects, spas and so on. And that's something that the government also wakes up to, and it makes a lot of sense financially, in the sense that I think it was Gran Canaria, they did a study. They have 15 million tourists, or had before COVID, similar to Bali. If you look at the overall tourism for Bali, you have probably 6 million expats and then 8-9 million domestic tourism. And they figured out, what if tourism never comes back, what do we do? So they started looking at how can we encourage people to come here, to live here, and they came up with a figure of how many people do we need to actually live here to cover that income and the impact on the local economy. And what figure do you think they ended up with? So 15 million tourists in terms of residential, how many people they need to come and reside there? 150,000.
Is that all?
Yeah. And then when you start looking at impacts, eco-impact and so on, and where it leads towards what we talk about health tourism, rather than having the $0 tourism, Chinese, sometimes also Indians, or the sex, drugs and rock and roll, this makes an awful lot of sense for the local community, the government, on all aspects. And another thing that I like with Tracy when we talk about that, she talks about why Bali. And I say this, like a lot of us, including me probably, we're a bit neo-colonial in our mindset. We don't want Bali to change. We want to sit with our legs up, have a bintang on the beach, cheap fried rice, and Made, take care of your rice field and treat me like a bit of a demigod. The change needs to happen. They have to have an uplift. And I think that when we talk about health, and maybe also like permaculture, there's nothing you can teach the Balinese of permaculture. They know everything. They've been taken away from that. And the same thing in health, holistic health, and how they heal and treat themselves. They know that. And how do we put that pride back into them to bring it out, to what Tracy talks about, the science and the credibility to it for the Western market to tap into it? How do you do the protocols and the standards of this so that people will come and you can defend this from a scientific perspective? To me, that is really exciting. And I think the last part of that too is that we're going to see now tourists come back. People are going to live here. A lot of challenges out of that. I think that some of the big hotels we see out in Nusa Dua and some other places, they're going to struggle. They struggled already pre-COVID. So a lot of those hotels need to look for different ways of attracting market and actually surviving. And I think that concepts like health hub clinics, retirement and so on is going to be something they will have to do. And at some stage we'll probably discover that this is just as good as having a bunch of crazy Chinese or Russians or whatever running around. No discriminate on these different markets. It's just a perception that we have that some markets are better than others.
Great insight. And Janet, so what's coming up for you? And by the way, what we're going to do, so what we really love is, obviously there's some incredible knowledge here, and we're unlocking pieces of it, but we can't unlock it all, otherwise we'll be here for years, right? We haven't got years. We want it now. So we love to be led to a certain extent by what's on your mind, right? So there's a consciousness here, all of us sitting around with these ideas or thoughts in our head. So in about 5 minutes or so, we're going to take this microphone here and we're going to put it over there with you. So if you have any questions that relate to what we're talking about tonight, just raise your hand. In about 5 minutes, raise your hand and then ask a question, and then that way we can then become, more, if there can be a word, more in vibe with what you would like to get out of tonight, because the idea is that you come, you meet each other, great network here, but you also get something out of tonight, right? You're coming here for something, you're seeking something. So the value of asking a question is that you give us the opportunity to give you some of that medicine that you're probably looking for. So Tracy, I think you're about to add to that.
It was to do with the Balinese, and really I feel the Balinese have got something to give, and that they want to, and that's through the Health Hub. We'd like to show the science behind what they're doing, and we're talking pragmatic here. We're talking the wisdom from the Osada, Okay, and we're also connecting, because part of Health Hub, we start with the clinical side. The second phase, to bring the body back into balance, we use a lot of Ayurvedic system to go back into the genetic side of that. Also, we use some traditional Chinese medicine as well. But with the USADA all going well, next month we have Professor Gelgel, the advisor for wellness, and to the governor here, who's also a forensic scientist, and he can tell you the science behind what Bali's got. As far as Indonesia's concerned, it doesn't matter. They've got so much that's never been tested, or the herbs and things for healing they would like to share to the world as well. So this is something here in Bali that we can support and help connect. And also, to heal people.
Beautiful. So, as Tracy mentioned, Dr. Gelgel will ideally be here for the next panel. Incredible fellow. As Tracy mentioned, just another fountain of wisdom, science-backed wisdom as well. Now, I know that Janet, I got the sense you wanted to add something into that.
I'll say a bit I don't want to take away from question time, though, because I think that's probably the most valuable piece. I'll just say quickly, what came up for me when everyone was talking was that Bali, what's the opposite to a perfect storm, when all the factors come together for the benefit, not for a disaster, whatever that is. The perfect combination of factors seem to be aligning for Bali, in that we have a new emphasis on self-empowerment of the consumer, which is now being applied to health, as we've been talking about tonight. We're seeing a new reverence for self-knowledge and intuition. So with that self-empowered person, being able to tap into the intuitive ability of those around them, rather than just scientific knowledge, which, let's face it, with the internet is not as valuable as it used to be. And also the ability to tap into our own intuitive self and develop a sense of knowingness about our body. My dad was a doctor, a very revered surgeon, an otologist, ear specialist, but he didn't have a clue what was happening below the neck. So if I had a stomach ache, he wouldn't be able to fix it for me. And I think, and who can really? So in other words, we have to start developing an own knowingness of our body. Just in terms of what's interesting for Bali, the new positioning, because my background's actually more in advertising and communications than psychology, although psychology comes into that, is it feels like maybe we might have once gone to India for spirituality, and we might have once gone to Thailand for medical treatments, or Singapore. If you did a Venn diagram of those three countries and went to the sweet spot in the middle, maybe that's where Bali fits in. So I'll just finish on that note.
Mm-hmm. And just I forgot about that. I spent about 6 months in Kuala Lumpur with the integrative clinics there. And what I saw was that after people have whatever treatments they need, they're healing, where do they go? For their nervous systems. So the idea was to connect with some of the centres there, and the people come here, and then we can put the programs in place here in Bali to actually get better. Because I tell you, you can't, in those situations, get well.
All right, so what we're going to do, Sister Ayu, if we take this microphone here, darling, and then make it do some magic and allow it to head in towards the audience. So remember, audience here, so some of you might be in a few different places. One place might be, I definitely have a question, I want to ask it, put the hand up and ask it. Two might be, I have a question, but I'm too embarrassed to ask it, right? So with that person there, we, in about 10, 15 minutes, will close the cameras off, and then we'll have 10 minutes or so where you can ask those questions, which won't be on camera. Or you can take the more courageous route and know that we're here together today. So it's not only you who's probably thinking about that question, it's someone else who definitely does not have the courage to ask that question. So by you asking that question, you're doing them a service as well. And the final one might be, I'm pretty sure they've covered this already. I definitely don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want to ask that question. To you, I say, ask the question, because once again, there's no coincidence that we're here, and someone else will probably need to hear that answer again. All right? So raise your hands. Thank you, my brother. And we'll do you, then we'll go to Natalie afterwards. And for now, we keep just to point out the person you'd like to answer that question, so we can keep it very tight and we can get around a bit.
thanks for great information, because I didn't even know. I'm here 2 months in Bali, but I didn't even know that was such kind of programs. I just was curious, because you're also in advertising. I never heard about it in that matter. So for me, as a newbie, let's say, to Bali, how, because I think it's also advertising, insurance, it's also about cost. You taught me a little bit about the insights. What is your idea of expanding that into a market? Because I'm from sales, so I was a little bit curious about, because you said a lot of good things, but I don't have a fact sheet on how it works, because who do you gonna go? Where do you want to start? There's something I was just curious about. How do you think about it with Hub? How do you want to set it up?
So it's as a platform. So starting here in Bali. Starting here in Bali.
You can go to about there. That's okay.
All right. Starting here in Bali. The idea is you have the map there and you have aligned clinics for starters. And there's all different levels, even the education places all through the island that you can get the information and then connect with practitioners. Okay, and then you have detox places through the island, because usually people plateau in healing to stay at one place for too long. It's good to go to another aligned place. So the idea is that within the tourism, we need spaces, we need education, we need clinics, and we need the practitioners. So it's a B2B, B2P and B2C model. It's a membership model also on all levels. Does that make sense? And then it's global, because there's telemedicine's very much a part of this as well.
And telemedicine, just in case you didn't hear, so telemedicine, obviously what it sounds like, it means you're doing that consultation using technology, a screen, right?
Yeah, with appropriate expert. Yeah.
Okay, I will look it up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And so we had Natalie over here with a question. So while we get the mic to Natalie, Stephanie, I just want to thank you, because it's your first time here as well, and I feel like Terje has shared quite a lot of knowledge. Janet shared her soul, as she always will. Love that. Tracy's definitely shared, and I would love to hear a little bit more from you, actually. So just before Natalie gets to her question, is there anything coming up for you now that you'd like to just to bring into this? If not, it's okay.
Yeah, I think it's in addition to what Janet was also saying is, our bodies have an innate wisdom and an intelligence. And it's also part of the work that I do is to bring the body to the right platform for healing, and utilizing various ways to bring about that health, mind, body, and spirit. And integrating that is what whole health is. And again, it's like Janet, I find it such a joy to do what I do, and, impacting people individually in that sense. And, having a renewed sense of health, and knowing that people have options, people have the choices, and they can take their health back and, be responsible also for their own healing. Because, I have a personal story that, really went through that, defying, traditional medical methods and tapping into that inner wisdom and that body to heal. So, thank you.
So Natalie, over to Natalie for the question.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much. It's so inspiring and interesting to just listen to all of you speaking about such an important topic. So as always, I have a couple of questions, but I'll start with one. Hearing you speak about, I'm actually asking everyone basically, so whoever feels...
Choose. Okay, it's okay. I'm sure we can work it out who can answer.
Okay. Speaking about holistic health and like the concept of whole health, what is the criteria for people coming to you with, because you were mentioning illness, and what I feel, a lot of people come to Bali and there might not be a physical illness, but there's a sense of inner stress, they're feeling lost, lack of purpose, all of those kind of things, but they are not aware what it is, and it causes, maybe not like an illness, but something is just off in the body, in the system, holistically. So I'm curious to hear, like, where would you place a person like that and your programs? Because we can speak about nutrition, we can speak about exercise. I mean, there are so many different medicines, so to speak, to treat someone. So a person like that, where would you start? And yeah, just the criteria of people coming to you. That was a long question, but yes.
We got it. Great question.
One package can just be like a discovery. So you just do some baseline tests. So with heat mapping, say, we see what's blocked, what's not optimal. When I say heat mapping, I'm talking functional diagnostic tool. So if they may not know that they've got an overload of heavy metals or their lymphatics are blocked or something else. So we've got a measurement tool for that. That's a hard science. And from that, they feel like detoxing. They're stressed, they're tired, they're stuck. So that's the first entry point.
Second part to your question.
Yeah, so what if it's, I work a lot with mental patterns and what that creates energetically, and you spoke about how you work with emotional healing, so the effect of, belief systems and what that creates emotionally and how that can create illness.
So we have what we call the storyline, so 70-page questionnaire, and it goes through the history. Mother, father, grandfather, also many different scenarios, traumas. I started with somatics. I work in somatics originally, and this type of thing. So introducing them, I call it like a Bali taster, to the breath work with Balinese and Indonesians to unblock the body too. And we go from that point first before we start with the head work and the conversation, because the body holds the score.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, it's basically starting with the body, healing, other like nervous system, energetics.
We use essential oils too, which is also working with the limbic and the amygdala. We work very much whole health,
Yeah.
All simultaneously. Within a week, we can have big shifts.
So if you would summarize that in your perspective, where does illness then start?
85% is emotional, the energy of them. That's why we need the body to be right. Yes.
Thank you.
The doctors are telling me that now.
Great. Thank you. Great question now, as usual. Just a lady here in the front. Yeah, so over to you.
Hi. Firstly, thank you for this fascinating event. I'm the first here, and it's my first time in the first week in Bali.
Wow! Congratulations! A round of applause right there.
Thank you.
You did it fast. Goodness gracious me!
Yeah.
Listen, whatever she's gambling on, follow her.
And
not professional advice. Sorry.
And I'm a nutritionist and starting on a health coach. I'm also an environmentalist. I'm currently studying at the university in Russian Federation, and our lecturers, they're all physicians, and they're all graduates of Institute of Integrative Medicine, which is the famous one in the US. My question is, it is interesting. In Russian Federation, the profession of health coach has been registered by the Ministry of Labor and Social Care. And the next procedure, it have to be approved by the minister. And if it will be approved, it's going to be in the list of official professions, like psychologists or endocrinologists. So for me, it's interesting how it's in Bali. Health coaches, they're registered official professions, or they're working on traditional medicine.
I can say a little bit about that maybe. Indonesia is known to have a very complicated bureaucratic system, which now eases up more and more. And I think where we might be able to help and support is protocols and standards for how you do this in other countries like Russia, and I think Tracy knows more about this, but Germany and other places who has a much wider sort of approved healers or different kinds of treatments and medical support that you can get. The governor of Bali said when he was elected that all the Balian, which is a kind of mystical, spiritual, natural healer, that he wanted to bring them into hospitals. So he is also on an agenda on how that can be further enhanced and driven forward. I don't think he fully understands that it has a bit of a complexity to it on how you explain to a patient that, oh, you're not going to see your doctor today, you're going to see Made from whatever village, Bali, and he's going to fix you. It needs to come together in a much more structured way. But definitely there's a movement for that to happen. And like she mentioned too, the tourism minister, Sandiaga Uno, he's very well aware of this and drives it forward. And one of the reasons for why they do this too is that I like facts, I like stats. I'm almost German, I'm Norwegian actually, but Indonesian economy, when they talk about something, they call it UMKM, so it's like small, medium, and micro-sized companies. That's 60% of Indonesia's economy. 97% of Indonesia's labor get absorbed into that. So all these clinics and all these pop-ups, as long as they can be justified and qualified from a professional point of view, I think you're going to see a massive movement in the right direction. Today, as a foreigner, you still need to work with a local doctor, how you engineer that relationship, but that is from a qualification and a credibility point of view. But financially, advisory, and so on, there's many different ways of how you can structure that. Yeah.
And I know you're about to have a secondary one, but last week we had Anastasia, right? And last month, Anastasia is from Russia. She was a nuclear medicine, radiology, right? So that's probably someone that would be great for you to connect with. Only not to say that, I don't know if you're from Russia. I think you may have said that you were, but also I think part of this is the human being aspect. I could relate to Tracy, but I'll probably relate more to someone from London, because I was born in London, right? Now you can hear the accent. London, no, I mean London. No, you're right, are you? So what I also recommend is that after we're done here, have a chat to Tracy, and maybe you can connect her. Yeah. Yeah, she's into nutrition, so I think that'd be a great person, being you've been here for a week, to meet, right?
Lovely.
So I just want to put that in.
I will.
Yeah. So
I've planned already.
Yeah, wonderful. So we'll continue that afterwards. So did you have a supplementary or a follow-up question to that one?
No, I think that's
complete.
All, yeah.
Wonderful. So now look, what we probably do now, because we can keep on talking here for a while, I think what would be relevant now is that if we'll bring this to a close, this part of it, we'll switch off the camera, because I know there's a few more questions here that people have, and then we can have that section there, which I mentioned earlier on, which is, we'll switch the cameras off, and then you can have 10 minutes or so, just a few more questions, and then after that, maybe have a chat to the guys individually, and then we'll call it a night. But before we get there, and Tracy, I'll give you a minute or so to think about this. So is there anything else that you'd like to bring up tonight? Anything that you'd like to explain in further detail, or anything that you think may have been missed that we could spend maybe a couple of minutes talking about before we then take this episode out and look forward to number 4? And in the meantime, while she thinks about that, Terje, anything else to add? The microphone feels like it wants to connect. No, you're good? To Janet? All right, okay. Janet, away you go.
Yeah, just speaking, it's Natalie, yeah. Just to what you were talking about as well, I think one of the reasons Bali plays so well into emotional health is that a lot of people come here when they're in a situational crisis. So situational being, divorce, grieving from loss of a family member, they've lost their job, they're trying to find themselves. And typically that's where we see emotional pain showing up at its most acute and its strongest. For example, I'm working at the moment with estranged mothers of adult children. And the reason I've zeroed in on that group is because the level of heartbreak for those women is so intense that it inevitably comes up as some kind of physical symptom. Like I see in this group a high incidence of breast cancer, for instance. So I think Bali's well placed to work with these people who are in high emotional pain before it develops into breast cancer or a life-threatening disease. And so really, I think from a tourism marketing point of view, it's about saying to people, when you are in a crisis and you don't know what to do next, and you don't want to jump off a ledge, right? You're a few steps away from that. Bali is probably the one place that can give you a level of succor and help you, because its approach to health is so much more diverse than going to a cold place like Singapore or Bangkok, for example. So I think situationally driven health is a really interesting area for Bali to be a magnet to.
Wonderful. And look, Terje, we'd like to add to that. You're good. So we'll go to you, Stephanie, if there's anything else that you'd like to add. You feel complete? Wonderful. Then Tracy, up to you to see us out. But before we do that, just want to remind you, so every Monday here, 6 o'clock pre-networking, 6:30 we go live on those 3 channels of Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube Live. Join our community. Make sure you're a part of that. And keep your eye on Instagram, SpeakuP Monday, all one word, and you'll find what we have coming next. We're almost approaching 300 episodes. I think it's 280 something. So we're getting pretty close to that. And we've had some incredible people, and there's some more incredible panels which are making their way to you, as well as the one-on-one interviews that we have. And if you're thinking about Bali, if you're watching from overseas, or you might see this on replay, make sure you check out the library, because in that library of about 140 interviews, I gave you the details before, you will find someone who you connect with, and you'll find their story, and that will also help you to find your next step. Now, for what concerns Health Hub Bali tonight, I just want to thank everybody here. So we've got Stephanie, we've got Terje, we've got Janet, and of course our sister Tracy G. Remember, Health Hub Bali, so that you'll find on Instagram. And remember the Tuesday talks that she has going on at Health Hub Bali HQ in Pereiranan, and you'll find all the details there on Instagram, or just look us up, and we'll be happy to share those with you. And look, finally, I'd like to thank Tropical Nomad. We have Itchy, we have Guzman, we have IU every week, making us look and sound great. So a round of applause for them. Thank you so much. Now, a round of applause for yourself, the studio audience. Thank you so much for being with us. Wonderful. Great to see you. Come and join them. And look, finally, Tracy, I just want to hand this microphone over to you to see us out, and we'll take it out from there.
I'll just say thank you for coming. I think it's all been covered. If I start again.
You're doing good now.
Is that all right? Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah, so that's it from you?
Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, the main thing, it's Bali. Probably I just wanted to, I will say something. Years ago I said, if you've got any, especially at that time I was dealing a lot with diagnosis, I said, get out of wherever you are, get to Bali. You've got 120 days for your cells to turn around. We'll get you tested, clean it up, and we can see what can happen from there within the collective. We're a growing collective. We're saying to any doctors, anyone with any kind of medical training, health coaches, to come and connect, that we can grow this together. It's not about any of us, it's about all of us, that we can share and support others. And the other thing is, when we're talking about what programs now, we're talking about radical well-being, radical detoxes now, very quickly, and get aligned and then start getting connected. And then next week we'll talk about more along the Balinese line, very grounded. They're using air, energy, ground. Let's get whole.
Wonderful. Round of applause, everybody. Thank you very much indeed. All righty.